previously on Ballz.
Now listen, round of applause for David Campese for
Campo.
a thoroughly concise
He's
and
blushing.
a thoroughly
Goodness.
He does not blush.
He's blushing, John.
They showed his
Oh,
try
heaven's
before the
sake.
game, and he didn't even blush then.
Why, he's blushing now.
Yeah, because I said I didn't do anything, that's why.
Yeah, Tim Horan did all the work, and David got his 50th try.
Yeah.
But no, very, very smart, concise, and to the point, and sensible summary of everything that went down on Saturday. I thought it was, I thought you summed it up better than anyone else.
It was probably the first time in about 10 years I got something right, but yeah, look, it was, as I said, it was a very boring game played by two teams who have just got no idea at the moment. And I just see that Buckies is back.
Yes.
Yay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Someone's just tweeted and said, okay, if someone else get injured, are they going to bring back Victor Matfield? And what happens if Hogard gets injured? Are they going to bring back Dupree? So obviously Annika Mayer's in a lot of strife because he's not sure where to go to from here. I mean, on Saturday, if you have a look at that last 10-15 minutes, it reminded me of the World Cup last year against Australia. They just got no finishers. They've got no idea what to do. There was no getting together and say, right, this is where the gaps are. This is what we've got to approach. There's no one took control. And there's some experienced players out there. And I think that the style of rugby is being played. As I said, the All Blacks are miles ahead. Argentinians played, again, a spoiling game of rugby. They didn't want to play rugby. They don't play. They just want you to make mistakes. But the Boks are struggling, and so are Australia.
Just on the Bucky's Botha thing, and everyone's going on about Bucky's Botha. I mean, he didn't officially retire from international rugby. He just went to go and play his rugby overseas, and he was still available for the Springboks. I don't know what everyone's problem is of bringing him back, considering his experience, and he's not suddenly a bad player. In fact,
No. He's not a bad player, but the thing is that, you know, you've got players who are playing in the Super Rugby, okay, and they're playing week in, week out. And the coach judges them on their performance. That's why you get picked in the national team. Now, Bucky's has been playing over years. They've had a break. They've just started back. What form's he in? Does anybody know? And what happens if he comes back and he has a shocker? Do you say, well, sorry, mate, you're out again? I mean, and the other thing is he hasn't got Victor beside him, so they work well as a pair. How's he going to go when he's the one who's got to lead the way? He's a follower. He's not a leader.
well, I think if they're going to start with Jean-Andre Krier, they say that he's going. Jake was telling us earlier that he'll probably come off the bench, which kind of makes me think who they're going to start with then. With Etzebeth out.
But what do you want to do? Do you want to keep on going back every time you lose a game? Go and get the guys who are getting older and older and older.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to bite the bullets. And as I said, I think he made a big mistake, Annika Mayer, when he played England in the third test. He should have just said to all the South African supporters, right, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to give all these young guys a go because we're looking forward to the World Cup next year. Go and throw all the young guys in. And when you lose, you say, well, look, we told you we want to experiments. You'd already run the series, you know, and I think that was a great opportunity missed to give the young guys a show. Well, I mean, on the weekend he brought on the two young guys right towards the end of the game, and they actually played some good rugby. But again, there's no combinations there. You can't just throw a flair player in there and expect him to do well, because he runs one way and the two centres can't even pass the ball. You've got Hogard on the wing who touches the ball once, and you've got Brian on the other wing who doesn't get it at all. And every time he does get it, he hasn't got the gas anymore. He's got to cut back inside. So when you're opposition looking at the box, you're going to say, well, who's the danger player? There isn't anybody. And all, you know?
Yeah, look, I mean, and we actually were at I think a few days after Heineke Meyer was made coach, we were at a breakfast where he spoke. And from that moment onwards, I think this has probably been the biggest problem. It all points to this, is that from that morning when he spoke, you could see it was evident that he was already stuck somewhere between that obviously very, very, I don't want to use the word bloodthirsty, but sometimes it does get to that bloodthirsty South African desire to win every test match versus, listen, I'm taking on a new job, I'm the new coach now, and this is what I want to do. And he's stuck between winning every test to keep South Africans happy and to try and, you know, keep his job from being under pressure, versus saying, I'm going to now look at what I've got, take into account the players that have gone, because, and you guys have seen it when some of your generation suddenly left. You don't just rebuild a team and start beating everyone in the first year. Taking who's left, the Matfields and the Boertas and the Dani Rousseaus, etc., saying, listen, it's going to take time for me. I'm looking at my options. Just give us time. We're going to go ahead and then bring those youngsters in. I think he was stuck somewhere between doing that and kind of relying on some of the older guys to get him through the England series, to get him through the championship. So he's in a bit of a limbo at the moment. Instead of just saying, this is what I'm going to do, and then going ahead and doing it so that people out there would understand this is the bigger plan.
Yeah, look, I understand, but also, have you watched the box at a training session
No.
recently?
No.
I mean, coaches don't coach, Darren. I watched the box down at Northwood in Durban here, their first training session. Hanika Meyer walked up, did not speak to one player for the whole hour. He walks up and down, up and down. The other coaches coach. I think what should be happening is the coach should coach the team. He should coach what he wants, not leave it in the hand of some good guys that because when the excuse expression shit hits the fan, who's the one that cops it? It's not his coaches. He's the coach. Robbie Deans is the coach. I mean, those guys have got to stand up to be counted now, but they don't. They just walk up and down and let everyone else do the work. And I think that could be a problem. And as I said on Supersport on Saturday, Hanika Meyer's never actually played the game of rugby. How can you get a team up before a game, get there, get them so excited to play when you actually haven't played? Can you explain that? I mean, it's very, very difficult to say, guys, we've got to do this, you've got to do that. You've got to some knowledge of the game, play the game, and see what its passion and the pride and all that.
Jake,
but anyway, I'm from an Australian point of view, so we won, so I don't really care. But I'm just trying to say that, everyone's really looking for excuses now, and they said, he's the coach, he's got to take responsibility. And when players make bad decisions, he's got to say to them, why did you do that? Actually get some answers, not sort of just pick him for next week because, he's the best player, I'm going to pick him again next week because last week wasn't, that was his normal game plan. So you can't make excuses. This is a professional sport. The players have got to be more professional. They've got to take more on board as themselves, more responsibility. You can't say after the game, we've got some young guys and we didn't play. Hey, you ask any other person in the world who doesn't play sport, I bet you they'd love to go out there and play a test match. But they never can because it's not good enough. And these guys are the best, but we don't really see the best of their ability.
All right, Simon just mouthed something at me. Normally it's obscene and derogatory, but this is actually something that is going to spanner your argument about Hanika Meyer playing rugby. Simon?
Right.
Well, Jake White never played.
Yeah, but he's a school teacher.
What's the difference?
That's the difference.
Well, look, okay, look, I've always been up against school teachers. So school teachers are very, very organised, very clinical, and very structured.
On paper.
Sorry?
Don't
paper.
worry, it's only John. Don't worry, David. Carry on.
Okay, but the other thing is also, if you have a look at the team Jake White had, it wasn't a bad side, was it?
No,
and if you have a look at, I've had coaches where, we had Alan Jones in '84. We won the Grand Slam, but you have a look at the team we had. Robbie Deans was a great coach at who played rugby, but at Crusaders he had 9 All Blacks. So I mean, there's debate here, left and right and centre. But the other thing is that Hanika Meyer did really well with the Blue Bulls. Now the biggest problem in South Africa, I think, one of the problems is doesn't matter which coach you pick from, which province, he's going to pick the players from his province that he knows will do the job. And you've got a problem because Hanika Meyer's in the Blue Ball, so he's got that Blue Ball mentality. He's won Blue Ball style. He wants to win that at Test match rugby, but it's a different level. It's another jump up from Super Rugby to Test rugby, and I think he's finding it very, very difficult at the moment because he hasn't got the calibre players of the Victor Matfields, the John Smiths, or the Bismarck Duplessis. Once you get injuries, the guys coming through aren't that. They are good, but they're not as good or experienced as the guys you miss out. So, and at the moment, I think he's not sure where he's going because his game plan's not working, and he hasn't got the players that'll do what he tells them to do.
Well, one of the biggest concerns that I'm sort of got here is, and we were talking about it earlier, we spoke to Jake as well. I mean, in a nutshell, he's saying it doesn't matter who you bring into that side because it's all kind of, everything's got a reason why, and a lot of people brought up, which is a true point in a way, that if J.P. Peterson and Bismarck and Skalkberger and Piers Spess and you name another 5 or 6 others were around that are still available to the Springboks, it might be a different story. I think Jake made a pertinent point though. He says it doesn't matter who you bring back into the side. If you're going to bring them in and they've got to be forced to play a specific pattern of rugby, that is not going, it's not going to make much difference to the side. Now, my concern is if that's the case, and Heineke's got to change it up for the benefit of the Springboks, start getting it wider, getting the ball through the hands, more retention of possession without just kicking it up and hoping that you're going to turn possession over. Has he got the potential to do that?
They can't pass the ball along the back line, so how's the ball going to get out? You've got 2 centres at the moment that don't pass the ball.
But is that not? Are they not playing under a specific instruction?
Look, it's not their fault. They've been told to play in a position, and unfortunately, as I said, I've been saying this right. The skill factor is very poor. The All Black skills outweigh the Wallabies and Springboks combined. They haven't got skills. They can't offload. They can't upset the opposition because there isn't anybody. This week is going to be a bash fest because that's how South Africa and New Zealand, they want to show who's the strongest. It's not about skill, it's about who's the strongest. And it's always been that way. And I said to Nick Mallett on Saturday, I said, when Australia, when we played the Box, we always knew it was going to be very, very physical. But we knew we had better skills. And that's where we've beaten the Box before because of the skill factor. But see, now you can't rely on that blue ball, barge, physicality. You've got to throw skills in there. And one of the biggest concerns, and I've been saying, you've got to get back to schoolboy rugby here now and coach the coaches about the skill. You can't get a Spieth now who was that size at school and put him at number 10 and barge it up. The game's changed. And if you want to continue, you've got to try and keep up with the rest of the world and say, right, let's go and skill all these guys up. The catch pass, the communication, the understanding. I mean, realistically, how did Higginbottom get through that line of defence? One missed tackle. Now, how can you miss a tackle when the Box have been so tried on their defence? It was underneath the post, Darren. So there's a lot of things. So we can talk about it forever, but unfortunately, we're not on tour. The coach has got to decide what he wants to play, but he's got to have the players to play that style. You can't have a running rugby style if you haven't got guys that can't pass the ball. That is the concern.
Well, I mean, as I say, if that's the style, and it's typical style that brought the Bulls success in Super Rugby, and that's the only style that we
but also, Darren, just the other thing, I was told also, if you have a look when Heineke came along, he brought the best players in South Africa.
Yeah, really, he had the players.
You have a look at the team he had. It wasn't a bad side, was it?
No, there was a good side. But I'm saying, and everyone's been banging on about this, is that this is his style of rugby. Now,
what is his style? Because the kicking game did work for you on Saturday. The rest of it didn't.
It did in the first half. First half, but. And look, I mean, this is something Nas used to bang on about as well. There's kicking, and then there's clever kicking, and this is where he was so strong. If you're going to kick the ball into their half to try and put pressure, turn their forwards around, get them turning around constantly, you can't just kick it down someone's throat and then hope he's going to turn it over when he runs it back at you. You got to kick it in the corners, and that's what they were doing in the first half. It was clever tactical kicking, where it was putting them under pressure. Second half, gone. It wasn't clever again.
Because you haven't got anybody to run the ball back. But the other thing is, at half time, do you know how many kicks there were in the first half?
No.
43 kicks in really 20 minutes of rugby. So every 30 seconds, there was a useless kick. And what happens is, the more you kick the ball away, I keep on saying, you can't win the game of rugby. The rugby game's about the ball. And as I said, you had 2 very desperate teams out there. Australia were doing those ridiculous little grubbers from their own 22. Yeah. I mean, and then the coach comes out at half-time, Dean said, we've been doing these silly little kicks. I said, mate, but you're the coach. Don't you know what your players are doing?
Yeah.
So therefore, that's what I mean. Unfortunately, rugby's come to that situation now where when you're desperate, you want to win. You don't care how you win. You could be the worst team in the world and win, and everyone's happy because you saved the job again. But the thing is, if you haven't got the players to understand each other, to pass, when was the last time you saw a dummy switch or a switch in a rugby game? You don't see them. Brian tried to do that, but he didn't even tell John de Villiers what he was doing. It was just like they've never played together. You train every day of your life as a professional rugby player. Why don't they understand each other?
I saw one of those on Saturday, by the way.
Yeah, that was when it was drops.
No, the dummy switch. I saw one of those on Saturday.
Where?
When Quade Cooper walked out of the change room, he switched the light off.
Don't laugh.
Sorry.
He's just staring
He's
at
not
you.
laughing. Take it easy. He's not laughing.
I was like, you're kidding me, right?
I think you talk about the Kiwi game over in New Zealand, mate, not the Australian game.
Yes, Simon.
Just a comment, Campo. You know, Heineke's game is the kicking one, but you know, you say the players don't know how to pass the ball. A lot of these guys would have played under Peter de Villiers, whose game plan wasn't to kick the ball away.
And Jake White.
So they do actually know how to run it.
Where? Have you seen them run it?
I haven't, but I'm
Exactly.
saying, I know, but it shouldn't be a foreign concept.
You go back to last year's Rugby World Cup against Australia. Okay, I was at the game, and that game on Saturday reminded me very, very much of that game that last 20 minutes when the Box had no idea. The Box was still in this game up to about 10 minutes out of the game, weren't they, in Perth? Did you see the team get together and say, right, this is what we're going to do? Take a couple. Everyone's looking around and say, well, what's happening? What are we doing? They'll just run around with chooks with their head chopped off.
Yep.
There was no composure. 10 minutes of rugby is a long time when you've got the ball. But every time they get there, they kick it away for some silly reason.
But
they've got to back themselves.
But I think what Simon's saying there, I mean, we've seen these guys going back a few years now, the front stains, the Jean de Villiers. I mean, we've seen Jean de Villiers running in the hat-trick of tries against the All Blacks, and these guys, we've seen them do it before in days gone by. And I think the one point that stands out for me is when everyone was banging on about how Wynand Olivier never passes the ball, and always plays the crash ball, always takes it up every single time, and then subsequently heard that was his instruction. He was told, we do not want to see you passing the ball. You will run it up, and that is your job. So he was being unfairly battered by people all over the place for doing something that his coach or not doing something his coach forbade him to do.
But see, unfortunately, you know, I mean, it's success for a lot of coaches is just winning. You know, to me, you know, the thing is, I said to a lot of people today, I said, look, you wouldn't actually pay money to watch that game on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I would have refused to have gone to go and watch that game of rugby, because the skill factor was so bad. I mean, just the mistakes. And yet these are the superstars of rugby. They get paid a lot of money. They're written about every day in the paper. Fans love them. And yet they can't do a simple thing on the rugby field. You know, and it is very, very disappointing. But again, as I say, I can only guess what's going to happen on a Saturday, because I don't know the tactics from any teams. As you're saying, I don't know what Heineke Meyer, what his instructions are. We don't know. So when you see a player go out there, make a mistake or do something silly, he's under instructions. Otherwise, if I was the coach, I'd pull someone off every time they did something wrong. But these guys don't do that. They're there because the coach believes they're going to do a job. But the important thing of international rugby is, if you don't work as a team, you're not going to win. Simple, basic. Doesn't matter if you've got 15 great superstars. If you don't work as a team, that's why the All Blacks are so far advanced. They all play together. Their commitment, but their enthusiasm for playing for the All Blacks outweighs any other team at the moment.
So Saturday, are you in studio, by the way, first of all?
I'm in studio. They don't trust me for the first game, so I've got the Wallabies again against Argentina.
Is that it? They won't let you go into near the All Black game?
Well, I was supposed to this week, and they changed it. They brought in John Mitchell, so...
Okay.
Oh, but he needs some work.
Yeah. Next time, Arsenal, give him something to say, because I don't think they went to him for that whole post-match thing. He just sat there.
But see, you know, it was interesting games. I mean, it was very, you know, but see, the thing is, if you have a look at those games, the All Blacks at half-time realised their first half, what they were doing wasn't working, so they changed their game pattern. Australia and South Africa can't change. They don't know how to change. You brought two young guys on with 20 to go. They did very well, but nobody understood what they were doing. You know, and that's what a team's about. You've got to, if you want a flair player, you've got to let him get, you've got to say, right, off you go. You tell the other guy, just follow. But these guys don't know what flair is, and that's why they're struggling at the moment. And again, it's got to go back to the under-20 championship this year, the way the Box played. I mean, they gave it to one of the centres who didn't pass. John de Villiers hasn't passed the ball much for the Stormers this year. So what happens when you get into a rut like that? under pressure, you're not going to pass. You know, and that's, if you have a look at who was the first one in the first half? Oh, Barnes, when he threw that ball from Australia, he actually had 2 or 3 in the first half. He said at half time. All he had to do was catch it and pass, but he threw the ball in the touch.
Yeah.
And I said the problem was, it was Ashley Cooper's fault. If he actually changed his angle and came close, all he had to do was get and pop the ball, he would have scored. But these guys hang out there because they're not taught properly.
Yeah.
It's all about basics, and that's very, very frustrating. And that's why I don't really like watching the game at the moment, because you can see what's going to happen.
Well, Brian Abana's try for one was another symptom of that, because I mean, Mornay twice before that I think had two-man overlap with Abana outside, and eventually Abana had to actually go in and score a loose forwards pass.
Yeah, well the thing is also, if you have a look at Francis Dane, he cut out 4 guys. And that's what I do when I try and coach guys. You know, it looks really good, the spin pass, but the defence drifts so quickly. If he put the ball through the hands, you would have scored.
Yeah.
But because it looks good, the defence just goes straight across and off they go. And Mornay Stane's right. If you play as a team, get the ball, all they do is pass the ball up, the Billies would have scored. You're 2-on-1. Yeah. And then Brian has to go, again, there was no passes to score a try. The statistics I was showing, Nick Mallett was saying, you score from kicks, and you score from no passing. Yeah. So South Africa hasn't scored a try yet in the championship where there's been a pass.
Which, worryingly, with the game this weekend in mind, was something that I did notice with the All Blacks. I mean, they, as you say, they struggled with the Argentines in their face all the time, spoiling tactics, etc. Kept it close. But I think in 65 minutes, you could literally see the All Blacks, the change in the All Blacks. You could see that they started, they obviously did something different to be able to start operating as a unit, as opposed to playing as little islands everywhere and having these Argentines in between them and disrupting their play. They managed to just, like, at 65 minutes, they decided, all right, guys, this is not working. They changed it up, I mean, and started creating space on the outside, and that's where their tries came from.
Yeah, it was, but also, if you heard Dags when he came off at half-time, they were absolutely peed off with themselves. The mistakes they were making, you know, they were very, very disappointed. And that's what you need to do. You've got to come off and say, geez, guys, what's the story, you know? And against Argentina do not want to play rugby. All they want to do is spoil, and you can see that. All that Mendes does is try and kick the ball away and try and put pressure for you to make a mistake. And at the breakdown, that's why they had if they had a Southern Hemisphere referee on Saturday, the Argies would have been blown off the paddock every ruck, because they're off their feet, every ruck. A Northern Hemisphere, they play differently, you're allowed to compete. But a Southern Hemisphere referee will blow you up because they want quick ball. That is the difference between, that's why they get a Northern Hemisphere referee to allow the Argies, otherwise they'll be blown off the park every game, because at the ruck they're just off their feet and they slow the ball down and things like that. So
this weekend, what do you say?
Well, I think that unfortunately, I think the Blacks are going to win, and I think the Argentina, they'll give Australia a bit of a run for their money, but I think the Wallabies now, you know, after winning last week, they'll get a bit of a head up, and they'll probably win by about 15-20 points.
All right, so 15-20 point and margin for, because I mean, I just, you know, as much as I'd love to see a turnaround in a week with you know, what they've got, what's been going on, and to be able to turn around that sort of set in ways thinking at the moment, I can't see it turning around against the All Blacks. What do you reckon margin of victory for the All Blacks in that game?
I think also, just quickly, I think also when they took off Yanni Duplessis on Saturday, the scrum fell apart.
Yeah.
Why change? If you're doing well, why change? Leave the guys on, because when that poor prop came on, he gave away 2 penalties. You know, you just turn the whole thing around. Don't change anything. I mean, as I said, nowadays, mate, nobody wanted to come off injured. You don't want to give anyone a chance, so you just stay on for 80 minutes. Leave them on. If they're doing a good job, leave them on. Don't change it. Right. But I think, you know, I think they're going to struggle. I reckon, you know, again, it's going to be very, very physical. Dan Carter's out again. Cruden, you know, didn't have a great game. Look, I probably think I think the Blacks by about I'd say probably between 20-25 points.
Sure.
It's depressing.
No, but that's the reality.
I know.
That's the way it looks at the moment. I mean, the All Blacks haven't fired, haven't kicked in, and they just, they want to.
And I'm being very kind too, guys.
Yeah, no,
Thanks,
I mean
Campo.
that's the one thing we don't want to have is one of these 30, 40 point drubbings. That's what you don't want, because then it's disaster in this country.
Just very quickly, Campo, did you like what you saw when Goosen and Lambie came on?
Yeah, I did mention that. I said they played very well, but again, Lambie's better at 10. I'm sorry, but Lambie, he only got the chance once to catch the ball, and he was very timid. But your number 10's a very good player, but again, you've got two centres outside that don't understand what he's doing. If you want to play like him, you've got to pick a back line that actually suits him. And on the other hand, you look at Australian back line, you've got Quade Cooper's a very good player. Barnes is very, very up and down. And you've got Ashley Cooper doesn't pass the ball. So where's the danger? Cooper and you're number 10. There's no danger on the outside because no one can do anything because they don't get the ball. And that's where you've got to be dangerous against the All Black. You want 5 dangerous players where the opposition are going to be under pressure. At this weekend, is he going to start with Stain or Lambie? Who's he going to start with? Who knows? I think Stain's basically almost finished. I think he's a great player, but I think he's, the kicking game's great, but he needs to change.
Yeah.
And if he does change, he needs to pick a back line that's got a bit of flair, that's going to attack, and it's unpredictable.
I don't know if
But I can't see that happening in South African rugby for a while.
Yeah, I can't see him being brave enough to, I know it's been brought up before, and some people have said it's got nothing to do with it. Others have said it has, but there's that whole Huffy de Toy scenario that still revolves around in everyone's head, and I think might not be brave enough to maybe start Goosen against the All Blacks. I think he'll probably go for safety.
If you skill the players up and they play together often, you can do that. That's where the All Blacks have done so well. Nonu and Smith have been there for a long time, and they know each other very well. They've got a great number 10. Their number 9, Smith's a nippy guy, puts you under pressure. And you've got Dags at fullback's a bloody good player, excuse the expression. And you've got Jane, and you've got whoever winger they want to put in, they're all good finishers. So you've got a back line, everyone's dangerous. And that's what you need. That's what a good back line should be like.
Darren, just to let you know that I'm sure you did mention it that to Campo that Alan Roland will rep both rugby champs test here in South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
why do we persist on getting a Northern Hemisphere referee? Because they actually realise that the only way they're going to try and control us down here is get a Northern Hemisphere referee. Play their style of rugby. Now, I mean, it's just ridiculous,
Yeah. So he's doing both games here.
Yeah, and they're
All
saying
Blacks
that
and
so
Wallabies.
the breakdown lottery thing will continue.
Yeah, well, I think we've got some other problems we've got to deal with first before we start worrying about how the ref's going to call the game.
Well, isn't that scary? Because 20 years ago, no one cared who referee, but now we worry about who a referee is.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, just by the way, before we let you go, the last time when the Sharks went to Kimberley and got beaten by Griquas, were you part of the team then? Were you part of the coaching setup?
No, I don't think I was, no.
Gee, because they got bullied this weekend. Did you watch the game?
I watched a bit of game today.
They got bullied.
They
How
got
did they
bullied,
allow
but
themselves to
I
get
tell you,
bullied?
the prop for the Greekers, I mean, he should have actually been yellow
He
carded.
should have been
there.
red carded. He's a filthy bastard.
Exactly, and the referee just talks to him. I mean, there's no authority, and they know, obviously the referees must be scared still.
Yeah. And I think then when the guy that did eventually get a yellow was like, it came after about 3 or 4 or 5 Reno Barnes infringements. So he suffered the fate of the guy that should have been chased off the field. Anyway, I just can't believe that they, go to Kimberley, you allow yourself to get bullied like that, because they were
Yeah, but
properly
I mean, the
bullied.
thing is, see, the interesting thing is, and I've played many games where you should win. You're a better team, and what happens? You go out there, throw the ball around, think it's great, and the opposition just don't play like that.
Yeah.
The only way to play teams like that is play it tight, play to their strengths, bash them out of the way. Because I saw just before half time, the Sharks had a penalty and they went for a scrum.
Yeah.
Take the 3 points, it would have been 16-9 instead of 16-6.
Yeah.
In the second half, you're only a try away. But then, you try and say, oh, we should win this game. But unfortunately, you've got to actually play a lot tighter in those games than you normally do, because that's the way they want to play loose, because that's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
And it worked for them.
Cool, Dave, we're going to leave it there. It's almost end of show time, but always interesting to hear your thoughts and talk about rugby.
problem.
Not great Springbok news this weekend. We're good at Wallaby news. They get back on the leader on the winning trail. How many extra weeks has that added on to Robbie Dean's contract, do you think?
Oh dear, who knows? He's probably not got another year now.
You can see the disappointment.
All we asked you guys is to win one game. One game.
Well, you got the New Zealander for another year. Good luck.
Oh, shit.
Thanks, Campo. Nice to chat to you.
Thanks,
Send
guys.
love to the family.
Thanks,
We'll
Campo.
chat to you
Cheers,
later.
Campo.
Cheers,
Bye.
mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go. David Campese, the flush out here on Ballz Visual Radio.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays to Fridays live on balls.co.za. Balls.co.za.